want to tell you a little bit about my childhood. So I was the kid who did everything. I was in dance class, I was in Chinese school, I took acrobatics at a certain point, I was in calligraphy class, art class, what else? I know there's more. I was in Chinese zither class as well. That's the last one, I think. These classes took over my afternoons during the school week. These took over the majority of my weekends. This went on from maybe age 7 to possibly like age 13. I didn't do all of those things for the entirety of that period of my life, but you know, some were on and off, some were shorter than others, some lasted the whole way through. I was the kid who did everything. When I was younger, my mom was very much the epitome of a tiger mom. And I think there was a part of her that really took pride in being that. She wanted me and my sister to get into the best schools. Well, in the beginning, it was more about getting us into Shenyun, hence the dancing and acrobatics lessons. But when she realized that we were going to be little shorties at 5'4" and 5'2" respectively, those hopes shattered. And then after that, she shifted her dreams toward us getting into an Ivy League university. I know she was very ambitious about this because it's actually something that she's apologized for. Granted, it's the only thing that she's apologized for putting so much academic pressure on us when we were younger. But she has definitely acknowledged that there was some desire there that wasn't right for her to put on us. There was a lot of pressure. She would always tell us, you might not like it now, you might be tired now, but when you're older, you'll understand. And so I'm older now. Do I understand? I think part of me does. Not every kid gets to have those experiences, you know, not every kid gets to go to Chinese school and learn Chinese, which is a hilarious thing to say because every Chinese person that I know who was forced to go to Chinese school was equally traumatized, just like me, and did not enjoy the experience. I do not like Chinese school, but I can speak Chinese. So, but yeah, Chinese school definitely 100% sucked, but I'm grateful to have that skill. Honestly, my level of Chinese could have been achieved by watching Chinese dramas, which were definitely more enjoyable than going to Chinese school, but it's fine. Let's say Chinese school contributed a little bit to my current Chinese proficiency. I took art lessons. I can draw. My sister literally made it her whole entire career. It's her source of income now, but she also went to art school, so, you know, how much did the art lessons that my mom put us in help? I don't know. Maybe it just planted the seed. I don't play Chinese zither anymore. I wish I did, but there's literally no room in this place for me to have one. I will say, yes, I'm very lucky to have had those experiences, even though it was so much pressure on me as a child, because now I'm a very, you know, well-rounded adult with multifaceted like skills and stuff, a multifaceted skill set. But you know what it also made me is anxious and a perfectionist. What those experiences taught me is this: your self-worth is tied to these accomplishments. Your self-worth is tied to your accomplishments and your ability to get into an Ivy League school. I didn't get into an Ivy League school. I was a very big disappointment. I'm kind of the black sheep of the family, honestly. I didn't always know that this was how I saw my self-worth for the longest time. When I was a teenager, I would take so much pride in having good grades and having all these impressive extracurricular activities, because as a teen, what else do you really have to show for yourself? Like, upon what do you base your identity? So I learned to build an identity upon the foundation of all of these things that I did. You know, with the grades and the extracurriculars and all the skills. I did not realize truly how much emphasis I was putting on my accomplishments and tying that to my self-worth until recently. Recently, as in like maybe 3 years ago, which was also coincidentally when I started therapy. I read this book. It's called Letting Go by David Hawkins. And in this book, he talks about, spiritual vibrational frequencies and things like that. And there was this one part that really stuck with me. And basically it says that people who vibrate pretty low, typically they place their self-worth and a lot of emphasis of their life onto the things that they have. So these are the people that you will see obsessed with like material possessions and having money and having status and just having a beautiful partner or whatever. These are the people who are vibrating really, really low. They place their self-worth on what they have. And then the people who are vibrating like medium, they place their self-worth on what they do. So these are the people who don't necessarily vibrate down here. They know that life is more about like what you possess, and yet they are not at the highest level that they could be. The people who are vibrating at the highest level, they place their self-worth and emphasis on who they are, on being, simply being kind, being loyal, being loving. Doing and having don't matter as much. And when I read that, I was like, holy shit, I've been doing life wrong. And for the longest time, and I feel like part of me still is vibrating here, but for most of my life, I was here or here sometimes, but mostly here. And so I've carried this belief with me throughout my life, all the way to adulthood, to the point where now in my current life, I still do a lot of things. And it's because I never truly let the idea of your self-worth is tied to your hobbies and your accomplishments and the things that you do go. I've never let that go. One thing that made me realize that I was doing this was my perception of other people and my standard for other people. This would apply whenever I would meet somebody new. Like if I found out that somebody had like 5 gazillion hobbies like I did, like they did archery and they rode horses and they played guitar or whatever, or if they sang, or if they boxed, like I would think they were majorly cool. Honestly, I still do. Like if I meet somebody who has like 5 million hobbies and they're like super out of this world and like hard hobbies, I don't care how hard they are, as long as you have hobbies, right? I immediately gain respect for somebody when they tell me that they do all these things. On the contrary, if somebody doesn't really have any hobbies and they just spend all their time watching Netflix and scrolling social media and consuming other people's content instead of creating anything of their own, I kind of have this history of judging people like that. It 100% comes from a place of trauma. And now in regards to myself and how other people saw me, I would try and use my list of things I do to kind of garner cool points, to try to garner social currency. And with some people, it doesn't work. Like I can tell them I do all these things and I have all these creative pursuits and they still won't like me. I've spent so much of my life convincing myself that this is what makes me cool, this is what will make people like me, and then when I meet somebody who doesn't believe the same thing, it's like, wait a minute, wait a damn minute. See, the reason that I would even judge other people in the first place is because I hold myself to such a rigid, unwavering standard of this is what makes you a worthwhile person, that when I see somebody else not holding themselves to that standard, it disorients me. Because you know what that tells me? It tells me that what I've been doing to myself has not been necessary this entire time. Me saying, hey Leanna, your self-worth is deeply tied to the things that you do. You are worthless without the things that you do, therefore you must do the things that you do, otherwise you do not deserve a place on this earth. When I see somebody else just being on this earth without being so like neurotic and stressed about it, about all of this, and placing so much emphasis on what they do, I'm very confused. And in recent years, through doing therapy and being on a spiritual journey and reading all these books, I have come to realize that that is what projection is. It's because I hold myself to this impossible rigid standard that I judge other people who don't do the same. And that's dumb. It's a dumb thing to do. Even though I still think it's really cool when somebody has like 5 million hobbies, because I just love creative people. I no longer use that as a point of judgment against people. When somebody doesn't really have that many hobbies, I don't really see it as a deal breaker anymore. I realize that what matters more is if they're a kind and loyal and loving person, and if they care about me as a friend. I think love is very, very important. And for the longest time, I was very unwilling to let anybody into my life who didn't have the same emphasis on like being a creative and being productive and being multifaceted. You know, they always say you're the average of the 5 closest people in your life. And so I was very concerned that if I let somebody into my life who didn't find those things important, it would just kind of take away from my identity. What I've learned to build my identity on, that is. Right out of high school, I jumped into pole dance, archery, burlesque, and in college I joined Dragon Boat. I joined all these other clubs, and throughout the years I've drawn and I've painted and I've embroidered and I've needle felted. I've done all these artistic things. I started playing Chinese zither again. I started roller skating. You know, I'm just the girl who does things, who does everything. And at a certain point, a friend of mine told me that her brother would always ask about what I was up to every once in a while, because every time he asked, it would be something new. And I took a lot of pride in that. You know, I liked being that girl. But when I actually sat down and examined all of these things that I've done, I never really got good at any of them. I mean, jack of all trades, master of none, but better yet than a master of one. That's the full saying of the jack of all trades quote. But still, you know, it bothered me that I wasn't good at anything except doing a bunch of things, but not committing to any of them. You know, it drove me crazy, because my little sister, she's an artist and she's a writer, and she's a very, very talented artist. And I'm not just saying that because I'm her older sister. It's true. And I feel like I never got good at anything like that. Some of my hobbies, I would say I'm at a passable intermediate level. It would impress the layman, I guess. But I've never gotten like really, really, really good at anything to the point where any of them could be more than a hobby. Is that true, or am I just being a perfectionist right now? In high school, I had an opportunity to audition for a musical. They were doing The Wiz, and I had never auditioned for a musical before. I had no singing experience. I had very limited dance experience. I was awful at choreography. I was 15 years old, and I just wanted to do it. Just for fun, just to try something new. And I told my friend, who was really my bully, that I wanted to do it, and she was like, no, you won't. And I was like, okay, fuck you, I'm gonna do it. And so I did it, and I utterly and completely humiliated myself. It's really funny thinking about, but also very traumatizing. So there was a singing audition and there was a dancing audition. Singing audition went horribly. Dancing audition, they had to teach us choreography, and they were moving so fast and everybody was getting it and I wasn't getting it. Like, choreo is really, really hard. Choreo has always been really hard for me, but it's because I haven't had the training. I haven't had the training. You know, all skilled dancers and singers out there that you see, they've been thoroughly trained. Unless they're just God's favorite and just naturally good at these things, which is just so unfair. But most people that you see that are incredibly talented, they have been trained, okay? And I was so unfair to myself. Because I bombed that audition, I told myself a story from then on. That story was, you can't sing, you can't dance, don't even fucking try. Those are not your talents in this life. How unfair was that for me to put that on myself when I hadn't even given myself the opportunity to be trained? I tried one thing, I failed, and then I believed this about myself, And I carried this with me for so long. Last summer, I decided to sign up for a belly dance class, and I consider it my little side quest because it was totally unplanned and out of the blue. I just decided to do it because I kept hearing that women store trauma in their hips, and to move them in dance in fluid feminine movement is really good for the release of trauma. And I've actually found that to be true, so definitely recommend. Before I even signed up for this class, I knew it was going to be hard because of this belief that I carried with me. I can't dance. Because I bombed that audition when I was 15, having had no training other than the Chinese traditional dance that my mom put us through when we were kids. It was hard. It was hard, like I thought it would be, because I had no training. Despite it being challenging, I performed on stage this past December, and it was amazing. I loved it. But this choreo was one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do in my entire life. Because learning one dance move is hard enough, but now you want me to learn like 25 dance moves and do them all and remember the order. So overwhelming. I didn't have the experience. And I feel like the teacher had all these expectations too, because I was the only new girl and everybody else had already been doing it for a little bit. And so there was just felt like so much pressure. And to be honest with you, I almost let myself quit after this recital. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do this recital, get it done with, I might just quit. But then I realized I was being a pussy. Here's the thing about placing so much of your self-worth and emphasis on the things that you do. When you do something that you're not immediately good at, you just want to quit because it makes you feel not good about yourself when you're bad at something. And I think on some level that's how belly dance was making me feel, because it was just so challenging and I just couldn't let go of this belief that I had put on myself. I can't dance. Dance is really hard for me. It's not for me. But then I performed and I made a few mistakes on stage. Yeah, but guess what? I memorized that whole choreography when I thought I might not be able to do this, and I did it. A little over 2 years ago, I went to Mexico, and it was a very difficult experience because I did not speak Spanish, and my boyfriend, who looks like he should speak Spanish, did not either. And so it was a very difficult experience for the both of us, and I vowed that we would only come back to Mexico once we mastered the language conversationally, and we would be able to experience Mexico as it was meant to be experienced, you know, without the struggle. I have to admit, I have not been studying Spanish as much as I should have. I found it very difficult to stick with it consistently. And you know, it's funny because with smaller things that aren't so lifelong, like learning a language is a lifelong journey. I can sit down and I can finish a drawing, right? And I can do it. And if you want me to create like a 10-episode podcast mini-series, I will plan, record, and edit that shit so fast. And if I'm taking photos for somebody and they want their edits, I will give them their edits really fast. I will not procrastinate on things as long as they're a short-term project. But as long as they're long-term projects with no destination, it's really hard. Like, what's the destination with an instrument? You just keep getting better and better and better and better, right? Until you become like master level where you can just like listen to a song and just play without looking, eyes blindfolded, play behind your head. Like, you can always get a little bit better. Language, there are words in English that I don't know. And so it's like, where does it end? It doesn't end. It never ends. And I find that to be a very humbling experience. Same with being a dancer. You can always get better. You can be a really, really great dancer, but there are more techniques that you can learn. There is another style of dance that you can learn. These types of endeavors, they require a certain level of humility and knowing that you're bad at it and knowing that there's a very significant amount of people out there who are better at it than you and better at it than you'll ever be, and you just have to be okay with that. You just have to be okay with being bad at it. That's literally what sets apart the professionals and the amateurs, is The professionals stick with it and they're consistent with it, and the amateurs, they let themselves get discouraged. And I'm kind of done not being good at anything. I really want to get good at the things that I love doing. I think for a while there, because I was undergoing a chapter of inner work, and honestly I'm still undergoing it, and I realized this about myself, that I place so much emphasis on my accomplishments. I didn't really make it a point to be very diligent about my hobbies. I wasn't really consistent with guitar and also learning Spanish, which I've been wanting to do for like 2 years, ever since I went to Mexico and struggled communicating with everybody over there, because I was afraid that I was putting too much emphasis on the stuff that I did. And so recently in my life, I've been focusing more on being the woman that I want to be, being loving and kind and caring. But I've come to realize that there's nothing really wrong with taking pride in your accomplishments and doing the things that you love doing and getting better at them. There's nothing wrong with that. The part where it gets iffy is if you think that it's tied to your inherent value as a person and the validity of your existence. And so I'm trying a new thing where I'm being consistent with these things and allowing myself to be bad at them, with belly dance and guitar, and I'm doing at least 10 minutes of guitar every single day. I'm learning at least one new thing in Spanish every single day. And ultimately, in the long term, this is going to culminate into, you know, me not being sucky at these things. So I'm really excited. Honestly, every endeavor in life is it just starts with having the bravery to be bad at it and fail. I hope this video helped you in some way, gave you a new insight, or was just entertainment to listen to my ASMR voice, because I know some of you like that. I don't even talk in an ASMR voice on purpose. It feels good coming out at this volume and register. But I've been learning guitar for, I don't know, like 6 months now, possibly. But for the first like 5, I was not consistent. I was probably playing at least like once a week, but for the past like week and a half, I've been playing every day, and I already see so much improvement just within the past week. So I'm so excited to see where, you know, several months consistency is gonna get me. I fucking love, I love Back to the Future. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And the scene where Marty McFly plays Johnny Be Good is everything. Oh gosh. As a perfectionist, I was very afraid of doing things that I wasn't immediately good at, that would make me feel like an amateur. As a recovering perfectionist, I am allowing myself to be bad at the things that I'm doing, but also taking pride in being a creative, but also not letting that take precedence over what I base my self-worth on. Self-worth is based on how you treat other people, if you're loving, if you're kind, if you're caring, if you're compassionate, okay? Self-worth is this. Self-worth is not hobbies and the things and your accomplishments. I read a quote recently that said, it's not about what your life looks like, it's about what it feels like. And I think that hit home, that resonated. So I'll let that sit with you. And thank you so much for spending this video with me. I love talking. Part of the reason I wanted to make this video in the first place was because my perfectionism was getting in the way of my social media content, because I was so paralyzed over the idea of posting something subpar that was gonna like make me lose followers or whatever, or posting something that people weren't gonna resonate with or enjoy, or like posting a video that was kind of like blurry because I have really shitty phone cameras. You know, I think I was just too in my head about creating something perfect. And I think I really want to post more content this year, just because it feels like such a waste to just abandon the platform that I have created. But I will say that recently I have just been kind of shying away, but it feels like a large part of it is for the wrong reasons. Like, I have been enjoying my solitude and my privacy, but at the same time, I want to create, you know, I want to create the content. It's just, it's hard being a perfectionist, but I'm actively working on changing that. Here's to growth and positive change. I know this video wasn't necessarily fitness related. If you watch this video in full, let me know if you like this type of video. I kind of want to make this channel more of a lifestyle type of channel as opposed to just purely fitness content, because I feel like that's most authentic to me. And I want people to know me too, instead of just as the girl with the fitness tips, you know. So and I find that people tend to like the more personal touch, but let me know anyways. So yeah, even though this video wasn't directly fitness content, I feel like some of the stuff that I talked about, perfectionism and starting journeys and things like that, they could be applicable for someone who's maybe hesitant about the beginning of their fitness journey or finding it really difficult to stick with a routine. I hope it helps in any way.